The rain fell as if it carried the weight of every unfulfilled promise in the world, in the cold silence of a private garage, where dim light flickered against the wet concrete. Two destinies prepared to collide irreversibly. He, a man built on foundations of responsibility and solitude, trapped between twisted metal and the metallic taste of his own blood. She, a woman whose hands knew the roughness of labor more than the warmth of tenderness, running barefoot across icy puddles because saving lives was all she still knew how to do without hesitation. That night, Ana Luisa didn't think. She just acted. She pried open the car door, pulled Miguel Duarte out of the jaws of death with a strength she didn't know she possessed, and murmured words that belonged to no one. Perhaps they were just hers, or perhaps they were the entire universe trying to say there was still time. What neither of them imagined is that that brutal, intimate moment would plant a dangerous seed between them, that of a love that didn't ask permission to sprout, even where it shouldn't exist. Because sometimes, the heart chooses precisely what life has taught us to avoid, and when two wounded souls meet in the middle of a storm, there is no social distance, no past, and no fear that can prevent the inevitable. This is the story of a man who built walls to avoid feeling, and of a woman who tore them down without touching them. It's about the price of affection, the weight of truth, and the courage needed to accept that, however improbable it may seem, true love always finds a way. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. The sound of rain drumming on the mangled hood of the car was deafening, but it was Miguel's silence that made Ana Luisa tremble. She dragged him out with shaking hands, feeling the weight of that unfamiliar body against hers. And for a moment, just one, their eyes met. His, clouded with pain and shock, hers, wide with fear and something she couldn't name. "Stay with me," she whispered, not knowing why she'd chosen those words. Miguel tried to respond, but his voice failed him. Blood streamed from a cut on his forehead, mixing with the water falling from the sky, as if the whole world were weeping. Ina pressed her apron against the wound, feeling the heat of his skin burn her icy palms. It wasn't the first time she'd held someone on the edge of the abyss, but it was the first time she felt as if, by saving him, she was also saving herself. When the ambulance finally arrived, Miguel had regained some consciousness. He looked at Ana as if trying to etch every feature of her face into his memory, her soaked hair clinging to her forehead, her dark eyes full of a concern he didn't deserve, her hands still gripping his arm tightly as if afraid he might disappear. And it was in that moment, between life and near death, that something within him stirred, something ancient, dormant, dangerous. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Ana hesitated. Part of her wanted to just say her name. But another part, the one that had always been too honest for her own good, gave the full truth. "I'm just the housekeeper, Mr. Duarte. I've been working at your house for 6 months. His expression changed. It wasn't contempt. Miguel had never been that kind of man. It was something worse. It was recognition. As if, suddenly, he realized that this woman who cleaned his floors, who ironed his clothes, who existed in the shadows of his routine, had just become impossible to ignore. "Ana," he repeated her name slowly, as if tasting each syllable. "Thank you." She didn't reply. She just nodded and stepped back, letting the paramedics take over. But as they carried him away, Miguel turned his face one last time in her direction, and Ana felt, with absolute certainty, that that look would change everything. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to receive moving stories every day. 3 days later, when Ana returned to work, the mansion felt different. Or perhaps it was she who was different. Each step through the spacious corridors echoed louder. Each object she touched seemed to carry a new weight. She was cleaning the living room when she heard footsteps descending the stairs. Her heart leaped before she even turned. Miguel was there, standing at the bottom of the stairs, a discreet bandage on his forehead and an expression she couldn't decipher. He wore a simple white shirt, no tie, no executive armor he usually sported. He looked more human, closer, more dangerous. "Are you all right?" Anna asked quietly, unable to help herself. "I'm fine," he replied, but he didn't move. He just looked at her, as if trying to understand something. "Thanks to you." The silence that followed was dense, almost palpable. Anna squeezed the cleaning cloth between her fingers, looking for something to do, some gesture to break the strange tension, but Miguel took a step forward. "I need to thank you properly," he said. "What you did, it's not a small thing." "It was the right thing to do," Anna replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Even so." He stopped a few feet away from her. "I want to compensate you. A bonus, a raise, whatever you need." Anna felt something clench in her chest. Money. It was always money, as if everything could be solved like this, as if gestures and feelings were commodities. She took a deep breath, lifting her chin with a dignity she'd inherited from her mother. "You don't have to, Mr. Duarte. I just did what anyone would have done." But Miguel shook his head slowly. "No, Anna, they wouldn't have." There was something different in his voice now, a crack in the surface. "Most people would have called insurance and waited outside. You went in. You pulled me out. You stayed." Anna had no answer to that, so she just averted her gaze, returning to her work as if it were possible to erase that moment. But as she passed him on her way to the kitchen, their shoulders almost brushed, and it was as if an electric current shot through the air between them. That night, alone in the small room she occupied in the back of the mansion, Anna lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the weight of his body against hers, the desperation in his eyes, the way he'd said her name as if it were the first time he'd truly seen her, and she felt fear, because she had recognized something in that look, something she'd sworn never to seek again after the last time her heart had been broken. But the heart, she knew, never learned. Ana Luisa had grown up learning that dreams were luxuries. The daughter of a seamstress and a construction worker who died too soon, she saw her mother wither away between needles and thread, sewing dresses for women who would never look her in the eye. When her mother passed, taken by an illness the public health system had treated with neglect, Anna was 19 and a broken promise in her chest. His name was Rafael. He'd promised he'd be back after his military service. He'd promised they'd build something together. But he returned married to someone else, not even having the courage to look Anna in the eye. Ever since, she'd decided she'd never trust male promises again. Work was reliable. Money was reliable. Feelings, not so much. But now, wiping down the furniture in Miguel's library, she found herself thinking things she shouldn't, about the way he held his coffee mug with a delicacy that contrasted with the size of his hands, about the way he looked out the window as if trapped in a life he hadn't chosen, about his silence, not the arrogant silence of the wealthy, but the silence of someone carrying too much weight alone. She shook her head, annoyed with herself. He's your boss. You're the housekeeper. The end. But repeating it mentally didn't make the knot in her stomach any less real. Miguel Duarte, for his part, hadn't slept properly for 3 nights. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Anna's face tilted over his, heard that "stay with me" whispered with an urgency no one else had shown him in years. Helena, his late wife, had passed away 5 years ago, taken by a swift cancer that all the money in the world couldn't stop. Since then, Miguel had built a routine of obsessive work, endless meetings, empty corporate dinners. He slept little, he felt even less, until that night in the rain. Now, sitting in his study while they pretended to review contracts, he found himself listening to Anna's footsteps downstairs. The soft sound of the broom, the water running in the sink, and it was as if suddenly that gigantic silent house had started breathing again. He knew it was wrong. He knew there was an unbridgeable distance between them, not just of class, but of entire worlds. Anna came from a place where every penny mattered, where dreams were luxuries. He came from money, from inherited responsibilities, from a surname that opened doors, but also locked them. How could there be anything real there? And yet, it was on a Saturday morning that everything changed again. Miguel went down for coffee and found Anna in the kitchen, her back to him, humming softly as she made bread. She didn't hear him enter. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the loose strands of her hair, and Miguel stood there, paralyzed, just watching. There was something so real about that scene, so unpretentious, so opposite to everything his life had become. "Good morning," he said softly so as not to startle her. Anna turned, startled, and for a second their eyes met without barriers. Then she blinked, composed herself, and returned to her professional mask. "Mr. Duarte, sorry, I didn't hear you. I'll make your coffee now." "No need." Miguel walked into the kitchen, something he rarely did. I can make it." Anna stared at him, as if he'd spoken in another language. "You know how to make coffee?" Miguel laughed. It was a strange sound, a little rusty, as if he hadn't allowed himself that in a long time. "Believe it or not, I used to be a college student who survived on instant coffee and ramen." Anna's expression softened, and for the first time since they'd met, she truly smiled. It wasn't a polite or professional smile. It was genuine, luminous, and hit Miguel with the force of a punch to the gut. "I find that hard to imagine," she said. "Better times," Miguel replied, and there was a melancholy in his voice that made Anna stop smiling. They stood there, separated only by the kitchen island, but united by something invisible and dangerous. Miguel wanted to ask about her life. He wanted to know where that sadness came from, the one he saw in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. He wanted to understand how someone could carry so much strength and so much fragility at the same time. But he didn't ask, because there were questions that once asked changed everything. So he just stayed there, drinking coffee in silence beside her as the morning sun painted the kitchen gold. And for a brief moment, neither of them was alone. Miguel Duarte's world was made of meetings in glass-walled rooms, decisions that moved millions, protocol lunches where every word had to be measured. He was respected, even feared, but never truly known. His social circle included businessmen, investors, lawyers, people who smiled to his face and speculated behind his back. After Helena's death, this circle had tightened even further. People didn't know how to deal with others' grief, so they stopped trying. There was, however, an exception: Marcia, Helena's sister. She'd show up at the mansion from time to time, always with some pretext, to check on Miguel, bring inheritance documents, suggest social events he should attend. But Miguel knew the truth. Marcia felt entitled to a part of his life, as if marrying her sister gave her perpetual rights over his choices. It was during one of these visits that Anna and Marcia crossed paths for the first time. Anna was tidying the living room when she heard the doorbell. She opened the door and found herself facing an elegant woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, wearing a beige pantsuit and exuding a perfume that cost more than Anna's rent for 3 months. "You must be new," Marcia said, without introducing herself, entering without waiting for an invitation. "Where's Miguel?" "Mr. Duarte is in his study, ma'am," Anna replied, maintaining a professional tone. Marcia examined her from head to toe with a look Anna knew well. It was the look of someone who measured a person's worth by their clothes, the way they spoke, their place in the world. "Call him, please." Anna went upstairs, feeling Marcia's gaze burning her back. She knocked on the study door and announced the visitor. Miguel sighed as if it were a burden, but came down to greet her. From upstairs, while ironing clothes in the guest room, Anna couldn't help but overhear fragments of the conversation. "You can't keep living like this, Miguel," Marcia was saying. "Helena wouldn't want you to become a hermit." "I'm fine, Marcia. You're not. You need to start living again. Go out, meet people. There's that widow, Letitia's friend, who was very interested when I mentioned your name. I don't want to meet anyone. Then you'll stay here forever, in this empty house, torturing yourself." There was a silence. Anna found herself holding her breath. "The house isn't empty," Miguel replied, so low Anna barely heard him. She didn't understand what that meant, but she felt a tightness in her chest nonetheless. When Marcia left, Miguel went straight up to his study without saying a word. Anna continued working, but her heart was racing. There was something wrong with that conversation, something that made her uncomfortable and, worse, jealous, a feeling she had no right to feel. That evening, as she served dinner, Anna noticed Miguel had barely touched his food. He stared at his plate as if he couldn't see it, lost in thought. "Don't you like it?" she asked hesitantly. Miguel looked up as if he'd forgotten she was there. "It's not that. It's delicious. He trailed off, and Anna saw something wrestling within him. "Marcia thinks I should move on. Meet someone. As if it were that simple." Anna didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to comfort him. Another part wanted to leave before she said something she shouldn't. "Everyone has their own timeline," she replied softly. Miguel looked at her in a way that made the world around them fade away. "And you? Do you have someone, Anna?" The question caught her off guard. For a second she considered lying, but there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability, an honesty, that stopped her. "I did, but he taught me that promises are worthless. I'm sorry. You don't need to be." Anna forced a smile. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't. The pain was still there, just dormant. And now, looking at Miguel, she felt that pain stir, along with something new, something more dangerous, because she was beginning to realize that this man, with all his distance and his silence, understood wounds as well as she did, and wounded people recognize each other. They always do. It was the little things that began to change. Miguel started coming down for breakfast more often. Anna began lingering in the kitchen a little longer, finding excuses to stay. Short conversations turned into long talks. Awkward silences became companionable ones. On a rainy afternoon, always the rain, as if it were a permanent witness to this unlikely romance, Anna was in the library, organizing books, when she found a photo tucked between the pages of an old copy of The House of the Spirits. It was Miguel, younger, standing next to a beautiful woman with dark hair and a radiant smile, Helena. Anna stared at the photo for longer than she should have. There was so much happiness in that image, so much future, and now, nothing. "That was taken on our honeymoon," Miguel's voice made her jump. He was in the doorway, leaning against the frame, his expression a mix of nostalgia and something darker. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," Anna said, quickly handing the photo back. "Don't apologize." Miguel walked into the library, picked up the photo, and looked at it as if it were an object from another planet. "Sometimes I forget what it was like. Happy, I mean." Anna felt her heart clench. She was beautiful. She was. Miguel placed the photo back in the book, but didn't close it. He just stood there looking. "Helena was everything I didn't know I needed. Generous, intelligent, patient with me. When she got sick," his voice faltered, "I did everything. The best doctors, the best treatments. Nothing was enough. Anna didn't know what to say, so she did the only thing that felt right. She placed her hand gently on his arm. The touch was brief, almost imperceptible, but Miguel froze. He turned to her, and for the first time, Anna saw tears in his eyes. They didn't fall, but they were there, held back by sheer force. "You must think I'm pathetic," he said with a bitter laugh. "I think you're human," Anna replied. And it was in that moment, in that library filled with books no one else read, that something between them changed irrevocably. Miguel took a step forward. Anna didn't pull back. They stood there so close she could feel the warmth of his body, the scent of aftershave mixed with something more essential, more him. "Anna," Miguel whispered, and there were so many things in that name. A question, a confession, fear. She lifted her face, and for a second the whole world stopped. His lips were inches from hers. Anna's heart was pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. But then Miguel pulled back. Sorry," he said, running a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. "I shouldn't have." Anna felt as if someone had thrown cold water on her. The rejection stung more than it should have, much more. "Of course," she replied, stepping back as well, recomposing her mask. "It was a strange moment. Forget it." "Anna, I need to finish cleaning up." She left the library before he could say anything else, before she could do something foolish, like cry in front of him. She locked herself in the small room at the back of the house and let the tears come. Tears of frustration, of shame, of anger at herself for letting this happen. "You're the housekeeper. He's a wealthy widower still in love with his dead wife. This will never, ever be anything." But the heart, inconvenient and stubborn, didn't care about logic. That night, neither of them slept. Miguel stayed awake in his study, staring at his phone, at his contacts list, at Anna's number he only had for work protocol. He wanted to call, he wanted to explain. But explain what? That he was scared. That getting close to her meant betraying Helena's memory. That for the first time in 5 years, he felt something other than emptiness. And that terrified him? Anna, in her room, stared at the ceiling and wondered why she always chose impossible men. Rafael, who promised to return and never did. And now Miguel, who was right there, but more distant than any ocean. But what neither of them knew was that a heart, once awakened, doesn't go back to sleep easily. And theirs, after that almost kiss, was more awake than ever. The next week was a dance of avoidance. Miguel spent more time out, came home late, went straight to his room without dinner. Anna, in turn, adjusted her schedule to cross paths with him as little as possible. The mansion, once filled with stolen moments, returned to being just a house, big, empty, cold. It was on a Saturday afternoon, while organizing papers in Miguel's study at his request, that Anna found the folder. It was among corporate contracts, financial reports, documents she didn't understand and shouldn't be reading. But the name of the neighborhood on the cover made her stop. Villa Esperanza. The place where she grew up, the place where her mother had lived and died, the place where people she loved still lived. With trembling hands, Anna opened the folder. It was a demolition project. 32 houses were to be torn down to make way for a commercial complex. The families would receive compensation. Paltry amounts, she knew. That wouldn't buy anything in the same area. There would be displacement, fragmentation of community, lives turned upside down. And at the bottom of each document, Duarte Holdings. Miguel's name. Anna felt the ground disappear from beneath her feet. She had lived on those streets. She knew every family. Donna Benedita, who had looked after her when her mother worked late. Seu Antonio, who had taught her to ride a bike. The children who still played on the same cracked sidewalks where she had played. And Miguel was going to destroy it all. She didn't realize she was crying until a tear blurred the ink on one of the documents. She snapped the folder shut, as if that could erase what she had seen. But it couldn't. The truth was there, printed in black and white, signed by the man she was, against all logic falling for. "Anna?" His voice behind her made her freeze. Miguel stood in the office doorway, a confused expression on his face. Then his gaze fell on the open folder in her hands, and everything changed. "You shouldn't be seeing this," he said. but there was no anger in his voice, just weariness. "Willow Creek," Anna said, her voice trembling. "You're going to destroy Willow Creek." Miguel closed his eyes for a second, as if it were physical pain. "It's an urban revitalization project. People will receive fair compensation." "Fair?" Her voice came out louder than she intended. "You think money makes up for ripping people from their homes, from their history? Anna, you don't understand how these things work. It's development, jobs, economic growth. I grew up there, Miguel." She threw the folder onto the desk. "That's my community, my history, and you're going to throw it all away for a damn strip mall." The silence that followed was brutal. Miguel looked at her as if he were seeing someone different. And maybe he was, because Anna had always been quiet, polite, almost invisible. Now she was fire, revolt, exposed pain. "I didn't know," Miguel said finally. "I didn't know you were from there." "Would it have made a difference?" Well, Anna laughed humorlessly. "Would you have cancelled everything because the hired help was going to be upset? It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Miguel? Explain it to me. Tell me how you can sleep at night, knowing you're going to destroy the lives of 32 families." "Because I have no choice." His voice rose too for the first time. "This project has investors, partners, signed contracts. If I back out now, I lose everything. The company, my reputation, everything Helena and I built." "Don't bring her into this," Anna said, low, dangerous. "Helena wouldn't have wanted this. I didn't know her, but I'm sure she wouldn't want you to destroy lives to protect a business." Miguel went pale. For a second, Anna thought he was going to yell, but he just stood there, still, as if she had just stabbed him. "You don't know anything about Helena," he said, his voice icy, "and you have no right to speak about her." Anna felt the words like a slap. Then she nodded slowly and walked out of the office. She went through the kitchen, grabbed her bag, and left. She didn't formally resign, didn't leave a note. She just went. Because some wounds are too deep for conversation. And that, she knew, was one of them. Miguel stood in the office for almost an hour after Anna left. He looked at the open folder, at the documents that now seemed like accusations. He had always known that project would displace people, but they were numbers, statistics, reports, until they became Anna. He ran a hand over his face, exhausted. When Helena was alive, she was his moral compass. She questioned his decisions, forced him to think beyond profit. Since she was gone, Miguel let work swallow him whole, because it was easier to follow protocols than to face difficult choices. But now, Anna's voice echoed in his mind. Helena wouldn't have wanted this. Was Anna right? He opened the drawer and pulled out a yellowed envelope. Inside, a letter Helena had written in her final days, when she still had the strength to hold a pen. Miguel had read it so many times that the paper was worn, the ink smudged in places by his tears. "My love," the letter said, "I'm not afraid of leaving. I'm afraid that you'll get lost when I'm no longer here. Promise me one thing. Don't let work turn you into someone hard. You have a good heart, Miguel. Don't bury it with responsibilities and guilt. Live, feel, make mistakes if you need to, but don't stop being human." Miguel closed his eyes, feeling the tears come. Helena was right. He had stopped being human until Anna appeared. It was then he realized he hadn't fallen for Anna that night in the rain. He had fallen for her slowly, over every shared breakfast, every stolen conversation, every glance that lasted a second too long. She had brought him back to life, and he, in return, was destroying hers. Decided, Miguel picked up the phone and called his lawyer. "I need to cancel the Willow Creek project." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Miguel, you can't be serious. The contracts are signed. The investors will sue you. You'll lose millions. Then I'll lose it. Find a legal way out. negotiate larger settlements, do whatever it takes, but that project isn't moving forward. Miguel, that's an order. He hung up before the lawyer could protest further. Then he grabbed his car keys and left. Anna was in the small apartment she shared with two friends, lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't crying anymore. She just felt a huge emptiness, as if something essential had been ripped from her chest. The doorbell rang. She ignored it. It rang again and again. "Anna, answer it!" Carla, one of her friends, yelled from the living room. Sighing, Anna got up and went to the door. When she opened it, she froze. Miguel stood there on the threshold, his hair messy, his tie askew, an expression of desperation she had never seen before. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice tired. "To apologize," Miguel replied, "and to tell you that you were right." Anna blinked, confused. "About what?" "About everything. The project. Helena. Me." He ran a hand through his hair, nervous. "I cancelled the project. Willow Creek won't be demolished." Anna felt the ground disappear again, but this time in a different way. "You cancelled." "I'll lose a lot of money. I'll probably have to sell assets, face lawsuits, but it doesn't matter." He took a step forward, and there was a vulnerability in him that broke her heart. "Helena was right. You were right. I was hiding behind work to not feel anything. But now I feel, Anna. And it hurts. But it's real." Anna couldn't hold back her tears. "Why did you do it?" Miguel smiled sadly. "Because you reminded me that I'm still human. And because..." He hesitated but didn't back down. "Because I fell in love with you. And I won't destroy the life of the woman I love to protect a soulless project." The world stopped. Anna heard the words, but they seemed unreal. Miguel Duarte, the man she thought was unattainable, was standing there confessing his love to her. "I know it doesn't make sense," he continued. "I know we're from different worlds. I know you have every reason to hate me. But I needed you to know. I needed you to understand that. You changed everything." Anna didn't think. She just stepped forward and kissed him. It was a desperate kiss, filled with tears and relief and everything they hadn't said. His hands found her face, soft, trembling, and when they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. "Me too," Anna whispered. "I fell in love with you too." And there, in the narrow hallway of that simple apartment, two impossible worlds met. Because true love doesn't ask permission. It just happens. The months that followed weren't easy. Miguel faced lawsuits, lost investors, had to restructure the entire company. There were nights he came home exhausted, questioning if he'd made the right choice. But then he'd see Anna, sometimes in the kitchen making coffee, sometimes in the study reading a book he'd recommended, sometimes just there, existing, and he knew. 1,000 times yes. Anna, on her part, had to deal with the looks. Some thought she was a gold digger, others that Miguel was having a midlife crisis. Marcia obviously had a meltdown when she found out. "You're betraying my sister's memory," she'd screamed at a tense dinner that ended with her storming out. Miguel let it go because he knew the truth. He wasn't betraying Helena. He was honoring her wish. He was living, feeling, being human again. And Anna made him feel more human than ever. It was on an autumn night, with the whole city painted in orange and gold, that Miguel took her back to Hopewell. He had bought the houses that were slated for demolition and renovated them. Each family received their home back, renewed at no cost. It was his way of making peace with the mistake he'd almost made. "It wasn't necessary," Anna had said, watching Mrs. Benedita cry tears of happiness over the new kitchen. "It was," Miguel replied, holding her hand. "You taught me that money, without purpose, is empty. Now it has purpose." That night, when they returned to the mansion, which was no longer Miguel's house, but their house, he took her to the study. On the coffee table there was an envelope. "What's this?" Anna asked. "Open it." She opened it, and inside she found a deed. The mansion was in her name too. "Miguel, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can." He pulled her close. "Because you've turned this empty house into a home. And I don't want you to be a guest here, Anna. I want you to be an owner. With me." Tears came, inevitable. Anna hugged Miguel tightly, her heart overflowing with something she no longer had a name for. It wasn't just love. It was belonging. It was healing. It was a new beginning. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he replied. "And this time I promise. This is a promise I'm going to keep." They kissed there, in the study, where they had almost kissed for the first time, but now without fear, without barriers. And when they finally separated, Miguel pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. Anna held her breath. "I know it's soon," Miguel said nervously in a way she found adorable. "I know some people will think it's crazy, but I've wasted too much time, Anna. I don't want to waste any more. So..." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" Anna couldn't even speak. She just nodded, laughing and crying at the same time. Miguel slipped the ring onto her finger, then swept her into his arms and spun her around like they were characters in a romantic movie. And maybe they were, because sometimes life imitates art, and sometimes, just sometimes, fairy tales do come true. The wedding was small, just close friends, a few people from Hopewell, and a sunny day that seemed to have been ordered especially for them. Anna wore a simple but beautiful dress, chosen by Mrs. Benedita with maternal care. Miguel couldn't hold back tears when he saw her walking down the aisle. There was no excessive luxury, no ostentation, just love. Genuine, true, transformative. Months later, sitting in the mansion's garden, now filled with flowers Anna had planted, they watched the sunset, hands intertwined. Miguel had sold part of the company and was now dedicated to social projects. Anna had gone back to school with his encouragement and was studying education. They were happy, not in the perfect way movies sell it, but in the real way life offers it. There were arguments, tiredness, difficult days, but there were also laughs, hugs, shared breakfasts, and the absolute certainty that together they could face anything. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked suddenly. Miguel turned to her, confused. "Regret what?" "Choosing this, choosing me. You lost so much." Miguel squeezed her hand gently. "Anna, I didn't lose anything. I gained everything." He touched her face softly. "You brought me back to life. You taught me that there's something beyond work, money, obligations. You taught me to feel again. How could I regret that?" Tears came, but they were happy tears. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. I always will." And there, as the sun set over the city that had been the stage for their story, as the world continued to spin with its problems and uncertainties, Anna and Miguel knew one thing, that love, when it's true, survives any storm. That healing can come from the most unexpected places, that sometimes the right person arrives at the worst possible moment, but they are still the right person. And that's how two wounded hearts discovered that love, when it's true, always finds a way. And you, what did you think of this story? What was the moment that touched your heart the most? Leave it in the comments and be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll never miss our love stories.